Oh, she's so good. So, right, you have to come right before that. Yes. Which will be like, that's the first thing we do. So if they want to just stand in place now, we'll do the invocation and the pledge. And then I will present Conway High School ROTC presenting the colors. It's crazy. And then, you know what? Worst thing I can say to myself. Okay, all right, very good. So, I'm gonna do it from the outside. I'll tap for you to come in. I think it's 4 o'clock now. Is it? 4 o'clock? Thank you. Yes, sir. Good afternoon. It is 4 o'clock on May 16th, 2022. I'm happy to welcome all of you to this meeting of the Conway City Council and to have called this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, have we satisfied the requirements of the Freedom of Information Act? Yes. Thank you. We have one council member who is not present yet, but who won't be with us this evening, but we do have a quorum for the record. If you would please, Shane Merrill is here from the Refuge, who will lead us in our invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Father God, we love you. We thank you for this opportunity that you've given us today, God. Thank you for this beautiful day that you've given us to enjoy. And Father, I just pray that your hand would be upon each of our leaders here today, Father. Your word proclaims, God, that you exalt, that you put people in places of authority. And Father, I ask, God, that your hand would be upon each and every one of them, be upon Miss Butler and Mr. Jordan, Father, be upon Mr. Goldfinch, Lord, be upon Mr. White, Mr. Hyman, Mr. Helms. And Father, I pray that your blessings be upon the mayor, Miss Bellamy. I pray, Father God, that you would help them and you would give them the wisdom, Lord, to do the right things for your people. God, I love you. I thank you again for this beautiful day that you've given us and this beautiful town that you've called us all to be a part of. We love you and we thank you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Before we start the pledge.
Order, out and none. Harry, house. Hey, out, forward, out. He's out. Out.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Read on. Out. And out. Out. Out.
Thank you. I thank Conway High School ROTC for their presentation of the colors. We were just reminded of the blessing it is that we are in this beautiful city of Conway, South Carolina, but it is also wonderful that we're part of this grand state and these United States. We will begin with if someone will please make a motion relative to approval of the agenda.
Mayor, I'll make a motion.
Mr. Hyman, is there a second? Mr. Jordan.
I'll second Mr. Hyman.
We have a properly seconded motion to approve the agenda as it is set forth. All in favor, please indicate so with a show of your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. And now relative to the consent agenda, is there a motion? Mr. White,
Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
thank you, sir. Is there a second? Mr. Hyman?
I'll second Mr. White's motion.
We have a properly seconded motion to also approve the consent agenda. All in favor, please indicate so by showing your right hand. And that motion also carries unanimously. We are now at item 5, public input. This is an opportunity for anyone to speak to this council on just about any subject. The only exception being information that has to do with a single employee that would need to be taken up in a more private venue. But we'll welcome your input. You're allowed 5 minutes to speak. There's a monitor that I can see and that you can see as you sort of gauge your time. What else do I need to say? If you would, please, when you come forward, let me know 2 things. I need your name and I need to know whether or not you live in the city limits. If you would, please also speak directly into the microphone. I keep hearing that people in the rear have trouble hearing the person who's standing at the podium. I think we have somebody ready to come, but there's one person who called in advance, Councilman. Is Sarah Rich present? Ms. Rich, if you would, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Rich, and I am a resident of Conway. I'm here to advocate for safer cycling in our area, which can be achieved by establishing more trails and connecting pathways in Conway. As Assistant Professor of Honors at Coastal Carolina University and Chair of CCU's Bicycle Advisory Council, I'd first like to thank everyone here, from planners to the Conway Police Department, who was in attendance or otherwise in support of the Horry County Trail Summit hosted by CCU last week. It is clear that there is a great deal of need for and public interest in safer cycling and pedestrian and bicycle friendly trails and pathways in our area. As a bicycle commuter who rides daily from North Conway to Coastal, I'd like to speak today about 4 pieces of the low-hanging fruit, so to speak, that Conway could reach in the short term to enable safer cycling in our community, which, with gas prices and the nature of public transportation here, is an equity issue as much as it is a safety issue. On bicycle trafficked corridors such as 501 Business, we need the roadkill cleaned up more frequently, please. Cars can drive over, bicycles cannot. And to dodge roadkill, we have to get out into traffic, which increases the chances of collision. Especially this time of year, a lot of roadkill increases the difficulty of cycling, as it's even difficult to breathe, let alone to move safely and effectively. Number 2 is to establish a bicycle and pedestrian advisory council, such as the city of Myrtle Beach has done. I would like to volunteer to serve on this council as a liaison between the city of Conway and Coastal Carolina University. We need more designated bicycle lanes. This is item number 3, by the way. More designated bicycle lanes and share the road signs. Main Street is plenty wide enough to accommodate bicycle lanes, and share the road signs are inexpensive and effective reminders to drivers that cyclists have just as much right to the streets as they do. In fact, the reason the United States began paving streets and highways in the first place is because of the advocacy of cyclists. Number 4, this is my final point, having a rail trail or a pathway alongside the train tracks. So we're not talking about converting the existing train tracks into a trail system, but actually having one adjacent to the existing tracks in the section between downtown Conway and University Boulevard would decrease auto traffic on 501, Business, and on the highway itself, and permit safe non-motorized transportation between the 2 heavily trafficked and populated parts of the city. It would also enable safe non-motorized access to the Waccamaw River Park on Depot Road, which I believe is a city park. Many of our 10,000 plus students don't have a car, but they would take advantage of the amenities here in Conway, the shops, restaurants, parks, the museum, the library, the theater, if they could just get here. So if you could please think of the economic benefits in addition to the clear physical health, mental health, and environmental benefits of decreased auto traffic and increased foot and bicycle traffic. We need this segment of the rail trail to be included in Conway's Pathways and Trails Master Plan, which I believe is underway at this moment. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. What I didn't say is that public input is not interactive. We usually don't do a response, but I just want to say that that is a desire that we've had for a long time. We haven't made the timely progress that we hope that we would have made by now, but we'll certainly welcome your input. Thank you for being here. I know we have County Councilman Orton Bellamy, who seems to be prepared to come forward. Mr. Bellamy.
Good evening, Mayor Robert Blaine Bellamy, along with the city council members and attendant audience. Good evening. How's everybody doing? I'm going to bring you up to date on the Waccamaw, what we call Waccamaw Snag and Drag Project. It's a project that will be cleaning out the Waccamaw River, starting in on the border of North Carolina and South Carolina in an area called Brooksville, come across Highway 90, Reeves Ferry Road into the city of Conway, Bucksport, down to the Bucksport border. We received matching funds from Horry County Council, approximately $350,000, another $350,000 from the Horry County delegation. So do not be alarmed. Again, do not be alarmed if you see a barge with construction equipment in the city of Conway on the Waccamaw River. So we're providing that in advance, okay? Also, I'd like to commend your administrator, Mr. Embrick, for an awesome plan, your 5-year plan. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of that. It's a great plan for the downtown area. We're talking about hotels, amenities, and the downtown area. It's a beautiful area there in Conway. It's my city. I love it here. You're on the Waccamaw River. You have a treasure, majestic, and you have something that everyone marvels about. I have friends that are all over the world because I was in the military for 21 years. They constantly text me about the oak trees. And one of my friends traveled here to Conway. It's one of the very few cities in America where you have trees, you have built roads around trees. So the oak trees. So again, we have a beautiful city. I look forward to working with you with the 5-year plan. Annie, we're partnered with you, with the city. We're all one team. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to speak at this time? Mr. Hyman,
Mayor, I'll make a motion to close public input.
your second. Ms. Butler? We have a properly seconded motion to close public input at this time. All in favor, please indicate so with the showing of your right hand. And that motion also carries unanimously. Thank you all. Next on the agenda is a number of special presentations, and I'll just read these once. First is Employee of the Month of May from Public Works. B is recognition of educational achievement related to the police department. I'll keep the rest secret. Presentation of Gun Violence Awareness Day proclamation. A presentation of the Guillain-Barré syndrome, GBS, and chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy, CIPD Awareness Month proclamation. A request to annex approximately 2.82 acres of property. And we'll just go through items A through D, and I'll announce the others. The first is the Employee of the Month.
Mayor and council, hope everybody's doing well tonight. I have with me Kevin Edwards. He is our Public Works Employee of the Month for May. Kevin is currently employed as an operator too, but has been serving as a crew leader for the past few months. Kevin is a go-getter and can often be found trimming or pruning trees, cleaning ditches, installing tile, or cutting grass. Kevin is a true leader and exemplifies what it takes to lead. Kevin has installed several hundred feet of tile while still maintaining several miles of sidewalks over the past few months. Kevin is a true example of what a City of Conway employee is. And might I add to this, he can be found trimming and or pruning trees, cleaning ditches, installing tile, or cutting grass in one day. So congratulations.
On behalf of this council, thank you so much for your dedication and loyal work. Thank you. Now, an educational achievement recognition, Mr. Rogers.
The City of Conway takes great pleasure in recognizing educational achievements by our staff. Tonight, we recognize our Police Chief, Dale Long. Chief Long recently received his master's degree in criminal justice from the Command College of South Carolina at Anderson University. He began the program in August 2020 and graduated on May 6th, 2022. This included actually commuting to the upstate. His course of study included dynamics of leadership, executive liability, strategic and tactical planning, and policy analysis. As his capstone project, he completed in-depth research on the mental health stressors first responders endure and how left unresolved they lead to disorders resulting in performance issues, diminished productivity, and potentially misconduct. His research concluded that proper performance tracking methods paired with strong mental health resources can correct issues and promote officer wellness and productivity. The skills he gained will be a tremendous benefit to the city. Congratulations, Chief.
Congratulations, Chief. Certainly like to see our employees grow. The presentation of Gun Violence Awareness Day is Ms. Marcel Ross present. If you join me right over here, please. Thank you. Or anybody else who'd like to. I don't think I'll need it. Thank you so much. This proclamation is from the Office of Mayor, Conway, South Carolina, National Gun Violence Awareness Day. Whereas daily in the United States, more than 110 Americans are killed by gun violence, alongside more than 200 who are shot and wounded. And on average, there are nearly 16,000 gun-caused homicides every year. And whereas Americans are 26 times more likely to die by gun homicide than people in other high-income countries. And whereas South Carolina has over 950 gun deaths every year, with a rate of 18 and 9/10 deaths per 100,000 people. South Carolina has the 10th highest rate of gun deaths in the United States. I'm going to repeat that one. South Carolina has the 10th highest rate of gun deaths in the United States. And whereas gun homicides and assaults are concentrated in cities with more than half of all firearm-related gun deaths in the nation occurring in 127 cities. And whereas cities across the nation, including Conway, South Carolina, are working to end the senseless violence with a variety of solutions. And whereas protecting public safety in the communities they serve is mayor's highest responsibility. And whereas support for the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens goes hand in hand with keeping guns away from people with dangerous histories. And whereas gun violence prevention is important more than ever as gun violence grows and gun sales, suicide, and domestic violence increase. And whereas we encourage all to wear orange on June 3rd, remember that date, to honor all victims of gun violence and their loved ones. And whereas the color orange was chosen because hunters wear orange to announce themselves to other hunters when out in the woods. Orange is also a color that symbolizes the value of human life. And whereas anyone can join this campaign by pledging to wear orange on June 3rd, the first Friday in June in 2022, to help raise awareness about gun violence. And whereas by wearing orange on June 3rd, 2022, Americans will raise awareness about gun violence and honor the lives of gun violence victims and survivors. And whereas we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence, now therefore be it resolved that I, Mayor Barbara Jo Blaine Bellamy of City of Conway, declares the first Friday in June, June 3rd, 2022, to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day. I encourage all residents and everyone nationwide to support their local communities' efforts to prevent the tragic effects of gun violence and to honor and value human lives. Thank you for all you do for this important cause. And I appreciate all of you being here. Lucy, you're part of this group. The next is the Guillain-Barré syndrome is Ms. Marilyn McCurrick and Mr. Rick Horny. Are the two of them present? They are. It's been a year. Also issued this proclamation from the Office of the Mayor of Conway, South Carolina. Guillain-Barré syndrome and chronic inflammatory demyelinating awareness month. Whereas Guillain-Barré syndrome, called GBS, and its counterpart, chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy, CIDP, are rare, paralyzing, and potentially catastrophic disorders of the peripheral nervous system. And whereas these disorders are characterized by sudden onset of severe weakness and paralysis of the legs, arms, face, and muscles required for breathing, chewing, and swallowing. And whereas the course of GBS and CIDP varies widely among individuals victimized. Some have shorter bouts followed by spontaneous recovery. Others experience repeated bouts with partial recovery between relapses. And whereas the Guillain-Barré Foundation International, now the GBS CIPD Foundation International, was founded in 1980 to provide a support network for patients and their families. Whereas this GBS CIPD proclamation is intended to promote early diagnosis and improvements in medical treatment, research, and access to effective health care through public awareness. Therefore, by the power vested in me as mayor of the city of Conway, South Carolina, I do hereby proclaim that May 2022 is Guillain-Barré syndrome, chronic inflammatory. I don't know if I can say it right. One more time. Chronic inflammatory demyelinating. I'm not calling her. Awareness month, and I'm not taking this like that. I apologize. In the city of Conway, bringing attention to this catastrophic combined disorder to the people of Conway to promote awareness and improve private and public support of those affected, their families, and their access to needed services and resources. In witness thereof, I set my hand and caused the seal of the city of Conway, South Carolina, to be affixed the 16th of May, 2022, signed by yours truly and our clerk, Alicia Shell. For all your efforts in municipal. Item E is a request to annex approximately 2,820 acres of property located on Bohemia Court, PIN 38311010002, and request to rezone from Horry County Planned Unit Development to City of Conway Light Industrial. Ms. Harden.
Yes, ma'am. This is a special presentation prior to the public hearing, which is scheduled for June 6th on, with our letters sent have been 9 to the property owners around there. The property in question is behind, it's colloquially known as behind the Lowe's hardware store up on 501 at the intersection of Century Circle and US 501. The property behind that in the light blue outline is the one that's proposed for annexation and zoning to industrial. The property is located in the Atlantic Industrial Park. Is one that is adjacent to other properties in the park that have been annexed and zoned industrial before. So we have precedent in that area. The current zoning around it is industrial or highway commercial, which is appropriate for that area. The future land use map also identified these areas as industrial in the future forward looking for when we would and hopefully will annex other properties in this area. So the request is right in line with the future land use map. The Planning Commission did hold a meeting and discuss this opportunity and came back with a recommendation of approval, and staff does support that. Again, this is not a public hearing today. It's a workshop type. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you so much. This is an opportunity for us to get clarity on what will soon be presented to for public input and for a vote by the council. Are there any questions or comments at this time? There being none, we'll move on to the next one, which is item E, request to annex approximately 3 acres of property located at West Highway 501, PIN 32609010001 and 32609010002, and request to rezone from Horry County Commercial Forestry Agriculture to City of Conway Highway Commercial. Ms. Harden.
Yes, ma'am. These two properties that are shown in blue on the screen are on 501. They are north of the 4 Mile Road intersection. You may recognize this area. We have recently had 2 or 3 annexations and rezonings in that area. To reacquaint you, the property next door to it, immediately adjacent, is also owned by the applicant for this, the Hardy family. And they annexed this area into the city as highway commercial. There's also a larger tract, 2 larger tracts south of that are zoned R2 for medium density and R1 for single family. And those are 548. The future land use map, while we had a discussion at the last annexation that there was part of the property was envisioned as residential and part as highway commercial, these 2 properties are not. They're fully envisioned as highway commercial. So the request to go to highway commercial for this annexation is right in line with the future land use map and the comp plan. So Planning Commission at their regularly held meeting recommended approval, and staff supports their recommendation.
Thank you so much. Now, is this one that we're taking action on immediately?
No,
Or
ma'am.
is this like the other?
These are, the ones that are in this section are prepared for public hearing on June 6th.
Thank you so much. Council, Mr. White.
Excuse me. Our footprint for the city limits, how far out does it extend presently?
It does not go farther than what we already are on the other side of 501. I believe Country Manor is a neighborhood that's on that side of 501 that it goes a little bit further than this. This is about maybe half to a quarter mile from the end of our water line. So it's still within our water sewer services area, and it's within our extended area for response with fire due to our agreement with the county for a MOU. I'm sure I could have said that, but let's figure
And
say
that was
MOU.
my question also to
Yes.
add to that was, would that extend our services more than, than what we presently are?
It does on that side of 501. It does not on the other side. And we still have properties a little further out than that.
And if the next person that comes on that owns that lot, that long line
Yes, sir.
property there, suppose they want to do it, we're going to extend some more and more. How far, in essence, how far out are we going?
We have about 2 or 3 lots before we get to the end of our water line when we can successfully compel folks to apply for a restricted covenant in order to gain water access.
Thank you, ma'am.
And is this why these are coming in?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it because of that,
Yes, ma'am.
that covenant?
And because we're cool.
And everybody wants to be in the city of Conway. Absolutely. Anybody else?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Just.
Yes, sir,
what
Mr.
you said, the applicants, it's my understanding, wanted to be in the city.
Yes.
So you're kind of right.
Yes, sir. I don't have statistics to back it up, but I do have stories.
Moving ahead, item G, request to rezone approximately 3,400 of an acre of property located on Sessions Road, PIN 33806030081 from City of Conway, low to medium density residential to City of Conway highway commercial. Ms. Harden.
Yes, ma'am. This is a piece of property also again outlined in blue on the map on the left, although I realize it's not easily seen. We've got maps that'll be easier to read on the next slide. This is a proposal not for an annexation, but a rezoning. This property is already in the city limits. The property owner is the same property owner that owns the freeze, and the family is interested in expanding the freeze 1 lot behind on Sessions Street. And the Planning Commission meeting, they discussed that the parking in the area is, some of it is difficult to reach because of the line that often wraps around the building for ice cream. And that they would like to also expand more parking and more children area suitable for kids in the back of that property on that second piece of property. That property fronts Sessions Street and is currently zoned R1. When we looked at the property from the aerials and looked at the future land use map, the future land use map does still have it as a single family. But the Planning Commission noted that there are other areas along Main Street where those same boundaries have been expanded, 2 lots down on Sherwood and a lot, again, on near the 18th Avenue. But when we went to site visit, we noted that the property next door to the proposed rezoning, which was wooded up until a few months ago, has been cleared and prepared for a structure. And building permit files say that that's proposed to be a single-family structure. So we have a single-family structure that is in the process of being reviewed for installation. Directly beside it is no longer a wooded area. So staff noted the concern, noted the conflict with the future land use map, but the planning commission did, with a 6-1 vote, recommend approval of the request so that the freeze could expand into the property behind it.
Isn't it true that even though the property owner does not have a structure, any improvement there yet, that they would have been notified, they will be notified for the public hearing?
Yes, we've already created that letter and sent those out. Let me go back to the top. We sent 14 letters out to property owners within 200 feet of the proposed rezoning, and he was one of them.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. White?
Just that I kind of want this to happen, but at the same time, because if you're coming from 701 North to this place, to the freeze, if you would, trying to make that left turn in there is very hazardous, as well as then when the people are trying to get in and out, then the need for parking is a must there, I think. But then we also want to make sure that the house or the property that's next to them is protected as well. Would there be some type of barrier that they would have to put up to make sure that there is, I guess, safety from the house that's being built?
There would be a landscaping buffer required that is above and beyond what would be typical if they were simply the same zone. So whenever highway commercial abuts a residential zone, there's a stronger buffer than when highway commercial abuts others. And I will have that information more clearly if you'd like at the public hearing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else? Item H, request to rezone approximately 9 acres of property located on Mill Pond Road, PIN 338-00000008. From City of Conway, low to medium density residential to City of Conway Conservation Preservation.
That's an OG PIN number right there. That's a
Yeah,
very long-standing piece of property, over 30 acres in the general use. But you'll note that the annexation request is for 9 acres, and I'll explain that as we go forward. 12 letters have been sent to property owners around the perimeter of the entire property. Across the street from this property, which is outlined in blue, is the Conway Sports and Fitness Center on Mill Pond, and there's some other open spaces between Church Street and 378 in this vicinity. Current zoning shows the property as R1 or single family. One of the things I want to point out, let me go back to the flood map here. The area that's shown in dark blue, that's the flood zones from the latest flood map that was adopted at the end of last year. That's a considerable amount of flooding potential on that property. The property boundary also includes the canal from Crabtree Canal that goes along the northernmost border here. And you can kind of see the shadow of the canal base here under the blue. So this is a property that has a potential for a lot of water being held there. The R1 zoning on the current zoning map is something that would typically be of a concern when we're looking at potential of building in that area, because there's a lot of wetlands on that property and you try and find where the high ground is. Well, the applicants have had a discussion with the property owner and are seeking to rezone just the 9 acres. That's the high ground, leaving the rest of it as open space and leaving it as it's currently zoned. Although staff did reach out to the property owner and recommend that possibly the remainder of the property could also be zoned conservation preservation, so that area would then be free from potential neighborhood development, so that we would not be putting people directly in the path of future damages. Because of our history in this area, we know that there will be water in that area. So that was part of the discussion and the reason that staff had that discussion. In addition, the future land use map does show that entire property. We hope that would become conservation preservation. So with this request, 9 acres of the 32 would be accommodated if you do make this official. But again, we did put in a request to the family. They're going to talk it over. It's owned by a family group, not just one person. So they will discuss it and get back to me.
Thank you so much. Would you, in just in a simple sentence or two, for the benefit of the public, say what conservation preservation
Yes, ma'am.
allows?
Conservation preservation zoning allows for land to be set aside that will not be used for heavy development. There are some uses that are allowed in conservation preservation that are recreation based. The applicant wants to build a gymnasium there for a gymnastics program, and that is one of those uses that would be allowed on the high grounds. Again, anything in the wetlands is going to be very sensitive. It's going to have a lot of regulation and a lot of challenges to it. But the area that's shown here with the yellow line on this plat that the applicant provided, that's the high ground of this area, with one exception, which is this little crossing of wetlands here. And that's what they're proposing to rezone at this time. So the rest of it that would be shown in the rear up against the canal, all of that would remain as is. And there would remain access point here through the overflow parking for the church. So they would still have access point to a road. There's technically access on 501, but that is the canal itself. And nobody's going to be turning their car on there, not at least safely.
Not
At
on
least we hope
purpose
not.
anyway.
So the applicant has asked for that portion that they will be acquiring from the family to be rezoned from R1 to conservation preservation, which the planning commission supported and staff supports that recommendation. The planning commission added a caveat to that said that they would ask that final reading be held until the subdivision of the property is finalized, so that we don't have a split zone down the property line. And staff recommends that as well. We have done that in the past for a couple of others where conservation land has been discussed, and it helps them get their papers in order before it gets finalized.
Anyone else? Mr. Hyman?
Brandon, can you chop to that one? Looks like it being on Crabtree would be a great flood mitigation area.
We did not get into a point about where we talked about who would own that. We did talk about if they had ideas to, if the property owners, the family, had an idea to donate or to have someone else take care of that property, that there were many options. And I would be happy to sit down with them when they got to the point of deciding what they wanted to do and lay it out for them and help them, guide them from our standpoint.
I know
What would be
there's
best.
drainage that goes through that property from Mill Pond, and it seems like that would be
Yeah.
ideal for mitigating the amount of water runoff going into Crabtree.
It'd be just better if it just stays like it is and not hold any structures.
Others? We'll move forward. Discussion of a proposed amendment to Article 6, Section 6.6.2, accessory dwelling units called ADUs of the Unified Development Ordinance regarding size requirements as well as conditions.
This is a potential for June 6th hearing because this is a text amendment. We do not send out letters to the whole city. We just notify it. So if you are satisfied with our discussion at the end of this, we will set it on for a public hearing at your next meeting. An ADU or an accessory dwelling unit, some people call them casitas, some people call them mom-in-law houses or places. Some people call them places to put their 24-year-old gamer in the backyard, or maybe that's just me. But either way, it's a place, it's a separate dwelling unit on a piece of property, separate from the primary dwelling unit. And because we want to make sure that that stays put, in recent reviews of the code, staff has identified a couple of places where we have some conflicting information. We want to clear that up. One thing in definition clarity is that the ADU acronym, we want to make sure that it is upfront and at the top, because there are portions of the code that simply say in relation to the ADUs and don't say anything else. So we want to make that upfront up the cover of the definitions instead of putting it in a sentence at the end of the paragraph. A very picky clarity, but a clarity nonetheless, because we want to make it as easy as possible for people to find the information. On the screen is an image of our ADU example in the code. And you can see that the primary structure is at the house, is at the street. And an ADU can be either detached a structure that is off of the property or can be attached to the primary structure, but with certain restrictions. Two of the restrictions are number and size. How many can you have on your lot? And how big can they be? The number is no more than one. That's not changing, but we did want to make sure that the clarity of it isn't in conjunction with a permitted single-family detached dwelling. So if you have a single-family house that is not attached to anything else, an accessory dwelling unit would be an option in your yard if all the square footage and things can meet. In addition to size, we had a section of the code that said no more than 1,000 square feet for an ADU. We had a section of code that said you could do up to half of the principal structure or 1,000 feet, whichever is greater. Well, if you've got a 4,000 square foot house, that would put you at 2,000 square foot ADU, which is not really an accessory unit at that point. That's just two houses on a lot. So this clarifies that by saying no more than 1,000 square feet, regardless of where it goes. And the examples on the board are 1,000 square feet on the left and 400 square feet on the right. The 400 square foot size limit is what was when I worked at other places, the building code official said 400 square feet is what will fit when you get the measurements of the kitchen, the bathroom, the living room, everything that's code related. That's about how small they can be. Since that time, tiny home codes have been implemented, so they can get smaller, but that's just for reference points of about as small as it would get to about as big, definitely as big as we could get. And then having the ability to rent is something that the public has asked for in the past. So under the other conditions for the ADU, staff has struck the leases portion where it says that no leases can be permitted. So for instance, you have a casita in the backyard, your mother lives there and God help, she goes to meet her maker and leaves a structure in the backyard that you then can't use. You would be able to rent this out to someone. Part of the reason that is.
Are you saying you would be or would not be?
We would be,
Okay.
you would be. There's two supporting sections of the comprehensive plan for that kind of request. The housing element says that we want to support the efforts for public house or housing options in the city and support steps to increase community services and shelter for individuals and families with needs. Having the ability to have a casita in the back provides for generational growth. And then at the time that the family then splits off and goes into its own growth patterns, there could be a rental property on there to maybe help mom make it to the point where she has to make a decision. Population element, we always are looking at the number of people that are coming into Conway. We had a meeting 2 weeks ago where the state of South Carolina's Office of Resiliency said that the county of Horry will be as big, if not bigger, than Charleston in 30 years, population wise. Now is a really good time to start planning for that. And so this would provide other options for that population boom. We know that people often come here and rent a place to stay until they get their house built, or they come here and rent a place that it's while they decide which area to go. And by removing the restriction on renting ADUs would allow them to have more opportunity in the city. Planning Commission reviewed it and made a recommendation to approve as presented by staff. And I'm open to answer questions.
Thank you. Mr. Hyman?
Just one question, and I can just foresee this being an issue with size. So often you see these being built on detached garages. If you had a 20 by 40 detached garage, that's 800 feet. And if you have a unit above it, is the unit above it being the only thing measured, or is it the entire detached?
It's just a unit.
Okay, so would not include the garage below it. So a 1,600 square foot. garage.
Livable, it's livable space versus non-livable space. If it's, and I would defer to our building official on whether conditioned space versus non-conditioned space is where we would divide the livable line. But we would be looking for a place to cook, a place to bathe, and a place to, how the space is conditioned. If you'd like to add anything in, I'm certainly happy to kick it over to you.
I think he said you're good.
That's because I learned from him.
Mr. White?
Question, if I wanted to purposely build a, one of these units.
Yes, sir.
For my daughter that's come and live with.
It has to come with a card, sir.
Could I do something like that?
Yes,
Thank you.
as long as It's less than 1,000 square feet, and it is in the yard appropriately by the regulations set in the zoning code. As long as you have the place, an extra space for parking. Absolutely.
I think the question is, do you want to do
No,
that?
no. Just wanted to make sure she knew I couldn't do it.
I will say this, you're gonna have to talk to us first.
That's right.
You
Thank
can't just start.
Thank you.
Yes, I got you.
Does anyone else have questions or comments? We'll move ahead then. Item J, discussion of a proposed amendment to Title V, Chapter 3, the City of Conway Municipal Code and Article 14 of the Unified Development Ordinance to move public hearing responsibilities to the Planning Commission and amend the Planning Commission rules and procedures to reflect that change. Ms.
Yes,
Harden.
ma'am. If I may ask real quick on the last one, is there any opposition to us moving forward with a public hearing? Then we'll set that on for the public hearing.
I see none.
I wanted to make sure and not assume.
Yes, ma'am.
So the proposal that we have in front of you is one that we brought up, it was brought up to you during budget retreat about the potential of taking the public hearing to the planning commission level rather than having the public hearings here. In particular, because there are oftentimes periods of 2 to 4 weeks between planning commission review and public hearing during which the application sits stagnant and doesn't have any movement. But when we get to the public hearing, we find out that there were concerns in the neighborhood that haven't been addressed, and that can then further delay development. In an attempt to try and minimize that delay, the proposal is that we change it to having the public hearing at the planning commission. The way that it works now is the application is received by staff. 2 weeks later, the planning commission hears the basic facts, here's the conversation, makes a recommendation, passes it on to city council at this special presentation, and then 2 more weeks later, it's a public hearing. The planning commission, if they held the public hearing at that point, the public would have an earlier entrance for their comments and an ability for us as staff to hear from the public what their concerns are and possibly work with the applicant prior to coming to city council. So hopefully we have issues resolved by the time we get to you, if there are any. And if there are issues that we can't resolve as staff, then absolutely, that's up to city council for sure. But what we would do is we'd have the application come in and we'd come to you with a special presentation to let you know this is coming. Hold the public hearing with planning commission and then come back to you with first and second reading. You wouldn't lose any of the participation that you're losing. You would not lose the opportunity for first and second. That's state law. We just would hold the public hearing maybe 2 to 4 weeks earlier and get the public's input.
I'm assuming that part of what you present to the council would include any concerns that were brought up by the public and anything that might have already been resolved by the time it comes to us.
Absolutely. We'll have two abilities to tell you that. And the first time when we have the special here or the special presentation like we are now, we would be able to tell you if there's any concerns from staff or if there's been any preliminary concerns from the public. Then after we go to planning commission, who will hold the public hearing, planning commission will then not just make a recommendation based on the information that they have in front of them, they'll make a recommendation based on the public input as well. And that will be part of the record that comes to you. So if there are issues that had not been resolved at that point, absolutely, you would know about them because we put them in the staff report.
Questions or comments? It sounds more efficient. I like the idea that,
I'll just say before I was on council, I was on planning commission, and we rarely knew the public's concerns when we were looking at projects. And I think it's.
I really hope that this will do what I would, my biggest wish is that it gets a lot of the information that is necessary to make a good decision together at the same meeting up front, and then funnels you with a better result, a better staff report, better from our staff that says, these are the things that we've heard. These are what we have proposed. This is the accommodations that the applicant has made. And as a team, the community has been answered, the development has been answered, the staff has been answered, and we come forward to you with the presentation.
Mr. White.
And if the first reading comes to us and we majority rules in favor of it, is there a purpose to having the second reading?
It will still have to have a second reading. You put it on consent agenda you could put it on consent agenda as you currently do. If it comes to first reading and y'all don't like it, if all that work has been done and you still don't like it, you still have the opportunity to say no. Or to continue the item, or to just flat out say, although I've never seen you. There's always a first time.
Thank you. That question wasn't just for me, but for the public in general.
Yes,
to know that
absolutely.
The second reading would.
State law requires two ordinance readings for a law to pass through a municipality, 3 ordinance readings for a law to pass through a county. And so this is how we propose to cut off some extra time.
Anyone else? Thank you so much, Ms. Harden. I've got a feeling you'll still be with us, but
Yep, I got one later on.
all right. Thank you so much. We're moving on to item 7, public hearing and first reading. Public hearing. Hey, Gabe. Public hearing and first reading ordinance 2022-0606A, Article J, Chapter 5, Hotel Incentive of the City of Conway Municipal Code to create the Hotel Incentive Program, which provides economic incentives to help develop hotels and commercial short-term rentals in the City of Conway. Ms. Hyman.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council, for years, y'all have expressed a need to attract hotels to Conway. Thank you. And more recently, we had the Riverfront Downtown Master Plan. We did the public input meetings. We did the stakeholder meetings. And one thing we heard over and over was the need to bring hotels to Conway, mostly for friends and family that are visiting and for the unique experiences and events that they could also provide. So with that, staff has been working to create a hotel incentive program in order to attract those hotels. We discussed this at a workshop, a special presentation a few meetings ago. But what is proposed for you tonight, or proposed for you to discuss tonight, is an incentive that would provide reimbursement of certain fees for hotels that come to the City of Conway. These would be reimbursement of property taxes up to 5 years, reimbursement of hospitality taxes up to 5 years, and an expedited review period of 15 days rather than 30, because something we've learned is time is money to developers. So if we can make that review period a little smaller, it will help them get the project done quicker and therefore save money. So that's what's before you tonight. I know it was discussed at the last meeting that City Council really wanted to target boutique motel hotels more than anything else. So I did add language to the actual incentive that says City Council expressed a desire to provide more incentives for boutique hotels. But as I mentioned at the last meeting, these will be on a case-by-case basis. So it won't be a hotel comes in and automatically gets these reimbursements. Each of these requests will come before you and you can look at it a case-by-case basis and decide if you want to give them all of it, some of it, or none of it. So that's something that will be at the discretion of council. So.
Oh, and that worries me. You know,
and it's similar to the family entertainment incentive that we have now, which has been used for bowling alleys and movie theaters. Those are also done on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. All right, comments or questions of Ms. Hyman before we move into the public hearing?
Could we find something for grocery stores?
If you'd like for me to look into that, I absolutely can.
Please. Thank you.
I believe we're ready then to entertain the public hearing. Is there anyone here present who would like to either speak in favor of or against incentives for hotels in the city? Anyone at all? Yes, sir. Would you come forward, please, Mr. Devin Parks?
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, council members. Just in reference to this hotel incentive, a very common tool used in retail recruitment is what's called a void analysis. So simply put, this is a report that assesses the need of a particular retail segment for an area by assigning a relative fit score. In other words, a grade. So this fit score uses factors such as rate of expansion, demographic fit, cannibalization, household income, just to name a few. So in pulling this report, so the hotel chains with a relative fit score of 80% or higher for Conway are all considered lower mid-tier hotels. Now, if you dig a little bit deeper, there are
Could you
8.
name a couple lower, would you rather not?
I would be more than happy to send you that report
Okay,
if that's
that'd be
okay.
great. That'd be great.
Thank you, Mayor.
And one other question. Are you saying void, VOID? report?
VOID. So really what it is assessing the need in a particular area. Is this missing? Are our residents leaving the city limits to fill this need? So digging a little deeper with the next 8 chains. Now, there are 8 hotel chains that fit within a 70 to 80% relative fit score. So which coincidentally are all the upper mid-tier hotels. These are the brands we want to attract, and this incentive will increase our odds of doing just that. So Conway Chamber of Commerce is in support of this incentive. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? There being no one, Mr. Jordan, is your hand up?
Sure, maybe close public input.
Thank you. Is there a second? Ms. Butler? We have a properly seconded motion to close public input on this matter at this time. All in favor with show of hands, please. Motion carries unanimously. And this is also first reading. I would call a vote relative to council's willingness to approve such incentives as have been discussed for the building of new hotels in the city. Mr. White.
Mayor, I move that we approve this.
Thank you. Is there a second? Mr. Hyman? A probably seconded motion to approve incentives for hotels coming into Conway. Is there any discussion? There being none, all in favor, please indicate so with a show of your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. Item B is first reading of ordinance 2022-0606C, amending Title I, Chapter 1, Section 144, creation of specific departments. Mr. Williams.
Mayor, before you get to that, you skipped item 8A, and David Cross will be filling in for Allison Williams.
Is that not the one I just read? I did not. I did skip it. I'm so sorry. Let me reread. I checked it off before we got there. Item A, public hearing and first reading of fiscal year 2022-23 budget. Ordinance number 2022-0606B, an ordinance to levy taxes and establish a municipal budget for the city of Conway, South Carolina. I'm so sorry. It was really your turn. I just got ahead of myself.
Mayor, council. So the comprehensive budget for years 2022 and 2023 has increased 21% over the current year's current budget. Our proposed personnel for cost of living salary increase of 7% for qualifying employees, and new personnel, we will have 5 full-time positions. The property tax increase, the property tax millage will increase by the cost of living rate of 7% from 77.3 mils to 82.7 mils. So we have some new fees. We have sanitation plan review fee of $300 per unit for new single family and multifamily units utilizing roll carts or similar for collection. And then for the fee increases, we have the building permit fees, which will increase from $100 a square foot to $125 a square foot to reflect the actual cost of construction. For solid waste, the solid waste collection fees will increase by 7% for both residential and commercial service fees. An example would be the residential monthly fee for one rollout cart with a single pickup will increase from $24 to $26 per month, and the commercial monthly rates for dumpsters will follow the same increase. The roll cart fees will increase to cover the increase in cost of the carts. The solid waste roll cart fee will increase from $60 to $85. The recycle roll cart fee will increase from $46 to $70. And all new customers will be required to purchase both the solid waste roll cart and recycling roll cart at the time that they establish service. And then we have the environmental refuse facility rates, also known as ERF, and they will be provided a 10% discount to garbage removal services is offered to those using the ERF. Those same users also will not need to purchase any roll carts.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Mayor,
I'm sorry.
this question now. I should have-
Sure.
Those solid waste fees. Customers will be required to purchase both the solid waste rollout and the recycling cart. Is that presently, that this a new customers, I'm sorry, I didn't read that part. So they would not get the free recycling cart that we now offer to a new resident.
The bins that we currently give away, we're going to be getting rid of those. They will no longer work with the new trucks that will be getting the next cycle.
Thank you.
We've offered the free blue bins via grants for the last 3 years, and we will continue that program for as long as we can get the grants. But there's no guarantee of that grant coming.
Thank you. That's what I wanted. Sorry.
So stormwater, the monthly charges will increase by 16% for both residential and commercial service fees in order to address the flooding concerns throughout the city. The residential monthly fee will increase from $625 to $725 per month. Commercial monthly rates will follow the same increase. For public utilities, the water and sewer rates will increase by 3% due to an increase in rates by Grand Strand Water and Sewer. And the following fees, which impact the new growth the most, will increase 30%. And those fees are water meter connection and tap fees, water and irrigation meter base fees, sewer connection fees, fire hydrant meter tap and installation fees, residential pump station installation fees, water or sewer wet tap fees, and maintenance and construction fees.
I owe you an apology. I called you Mr. Williams.
It's okay. It can go a lot worse.
Mayor, both budget items are under one Roman numeral heading. Only the first one requires a budget hearing, but part of the budget process is changing the names and creating new departments. So if you don't mind if David does both at once,
Not at all.
and then have the public hearing for just the first one.
Okay, all right, thank you. So the city's code of ordinances needs to be amended to accurately reflect the city's departments. The department name changes will be planning will go to planning and development. Grounds and maintenance will now be hospitality and beautification. And then we will add the two departments of technology services and fleet maintenance. That's it.
Thank you so much.
Questions?
And now relative to the first part of your presentation, the A portion will now entertain a public hearing that had to do with the various fee increases and tax increases that will impact everyone. Is there anyone here who would like to speak either in favor of or against those changes? There being no one, Mr. Hyman?
Mayor, I would move to close public input.
Thank you. Mr. White?
Second.
We're properly seconded motion to close the public hearing. All in favor, please indicate so with a showing of your hand. And that motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. And for first reading, we'll entertain a motion relative to the presentation. Mr. Hyman?
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the budget. Do we need to do it in two motions for the?
It would be cleaner for two motions.
Okay. Well, then I'll just go ahead and make the first motion to approve the first reading of the budget.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second? Mr. Jordan?
I will second Mr. Hammond's motion.
We have a properly seconded motion to approve the city's budget for the upcoming fiscal year. Is there any discussion? There being none, I'll call a vote. All in favor, please indicate your consent by showing your right hand. That motion carries unanimously. We'll need a second motion, please. Anyone? I'm trying not to look at Mr. Hyman.
We'll let somebody else.
We'll let you, well, nobody's volunteering. Mr. Hyman, please feel free.
Make a motion that we approve the first reading of the new, the ordinance creating the specific departments.
Thank you. Is there a second? Ms. Butler. Thank you. We have a properly seconded motion to also approve this is first reading, to change the names of a couple of departments and create other departments. All in favor? A show of hands, please. And that motion also carries unanimously. Thank you so much. Item 9, First reading and ordinance ZA 2022-0606D to annex 80 hundredths of an acre of property located at 2597 Long Avenue Extension, PIN 324-160-30025, and request to rezone from Horry County Residential to City of Conway Low to Medium Residential. Ms. Harvin.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Again.
I believe you have encapsulated about all the information necessary, other than that this is a annexation to reconnect to the water system after a change.
Thank you, ma'am. What's the will of the council? I tell you what, I'll move that we approve first reading. Is there a second? Ms. Helms. Thank you. We have a properly seconded motion to approve first reading of this ordinance. Is there any discussion? There being none, all in favor, please indicate so with the showing of your right hand. That motion carries unanimously. The first reading is approved. Item 10 for consideration. Consideration of an agreement to lease city-owned property, 150 Busby Street and 181 Long Avenue. Ms. Hyman.
Yes, as city council knows, the city has acquired lots of lots in the floodplain throughout the city through the FEMA buyout program. And with that, it restricts the use of those properties. It then requires city staff is maintaining those properties as well. City council approved a few years ago the use of private leases to neighboring property owners for these lots. And we have a new request for this. You can see Kevin and Mary Tavornik. Oh, it's not working. On the center lot, and they are requesting to lease the two adjacent lots. One's across the street and one's in the rear of their property. And they are requesting to lease these two properties. They reside at 151 Busby Street, and the two requests are 150 Busby and 181 Long Avenue. I'm happy to answer any questions you can have. If it is approved, the city administrator will work with them to execute the paperwork and make sure everything that is required is received. Then the maintenance will actually be taken over from those property owners.
I have one question. In the preparation of documents that control what happens in this agreement, is there a matter of rescission should the city need use of the property for some reason?
Yes, I do believe the agreement does say that we can revoke it at any time.
Okay.
60 days notice.
60 days, with 60 days. notice.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Any discussion? Is this something that we would not only consider, but actually vote on today?
Yes, please.
Okay, all right. Sometimes I get confused. What I move then that we approve agreement to lease the aforementioned properties that are now owned by the city pursuant to earlier discussions on this matter. Is there a second, Mr. White?
Second.
A properly seconded motion to move forward with leasing city-owned property as has been discussed. Is there any further discussion or questions? There being none, all in favor, please indicate so by showing your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item B is consideration of the amended emergency operations plan. Chief Hendrick. We're happy to see you.
Mayor and council, we adopted the change to the emergency operations plan in 2019. And one of the requirements is that we do an annual review. Due to some storms and a lot of other issues, we have not updated the plan in 3 years. So we've put together some housekeeping items. They're included in the packet. Be glad to go over all 36 pages. However, I'll just outline 3 of the main ones. We identified the city shop complex and Highway 378 as a 4th sector, which is part of our plan. We added a glossary of emergency support functions, and we changed the OPCON level 1 to major and minor. We realized that during the COVID that we had to kind of scale back what we were doing, but we wanted to maintain OPCON 1, but it kind of went against our language. So that's an internal change we made.
Understandable.
So entertain any questions when staff recommends giving the city administrator the authority to adopt the plan.
Thank you so much. Questions or comments from the council?
I'll be glad to read it.
No, please don't. We're already getting a little dazed. So now I don't know which one are you. Let's try that again. Mr. White.
I move that we approve the emergency operation plan.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a properly seconded motion to authorize the city administrator to approve that plan. All in favor, please indicate so with a showing of your hand. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much, Chief. And now we'll hear from the city administrator.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's a moving target. There we go. First, I want to start out by saying the construction bids are open for the Smith Jones pool. So those are out there right now, and we hope to be able to select a contractor in June for that project. Last week and today, staff worked at the new gateway sign at Conway High School. I want to offer special thanks to our building department for constructing the wall, our planning department and very own Mary Catherine Hyman. That's Greg Rush and Willie Woodbury, painting our painters extraordinaire for getting this where we are. We have welcome to Conway without the C right now. The C is in the works. It's going to be a little bit more complicated because the logo on that, but that will over the next week take shape and be ready for lighting and then landscaping after that. So stay tuned, but I want to give you an update of where we are right today.
I like the use of our artists in residence.
They love it and we love to incorporate their skills. So there is a nighttime lane closure planned on the Main Street Bridge tomorrow night from 10 p.m. until 5 a.m. for bridge inspections. On Saturday, the Keep Conway Beautiful Committee held their Great American Cleanup. We had 75 volunteers, including 58 city employees, which collected 89 bags of litter weighing 820 pounds. That was over 12 and a half miles of streets, including the Billy Gardner Sports Complex and Smith Jones Park. So thank you to all those who participated, especially our grounds and maintenance crew, our Keep Conway Beautiful Committee, and all the volunteers and staff who spent their Saturday picking up litter.
I hate to interrupt you, but who is that child?
That is Bryson Gillig's son.
He's going to grow up understanding not to litter.
Absolutely.
And that it takes not a village, but it takes everybody to keep our area clean. I'm glad he was there.
You said it better than I have in my notes, so I will leave it to your statement. We had 2 timely applicants for our RFQ for public art. We will have a recommendation for you at a future meeting on the selection that we would recommend. And Mr. White, I'd like to get with you about the possibility of using one of these artists for the mural on the building the Father's Place is using. I think that'd be appropriate. So we'll talk in between meetings.
Thank you very much.
SCDOT has scheduled a public meeting at the Sports and Fitness Center on June 21st to discuss the intersection project at 378 and 16th Avenue. We don't yet have a time for that meeting, but it's on June 21st. And again, that's 378 and 16th Avenue, the intersection project there. The Grounds and Maintenance Department will begin installation of the American flag displays throughout the city next week, and those will stay up through July 11th. So get ready for those to come out. And I'm going to start calling this section of my admin report called Adam on a Soapbox. In the last 3 weeks, since we got close to campaign signs being legal, we have picked up more than 400 signs that were illegally placed either prior to when they were allowed to go out or in the right of way, especially underneath stop signs and just multiple signs going out all over the place. I reached out to one person running for office right now, and he told me that he got a wonderful deal at $10 a sign. So that's $4,000 worth of wasted signs that we've picked up. We've spent countless hours picking them up, at least $1,000 worth of taxpayer money picking these up. And where they're placed, it's not just an illegal sign, it's litter. And it's an enormous expense to the city to pick these up. And so I would just like to reach out to those politicians who may be listening or who may read about this, put them on private property with the property owner's permission. That is the only place you can legally put them. Private property with the property owner's permission. If you didn't do that, then you're violating our ordinance. And it's a fine of up to $1,100 per sign. And we really wouldn't like to give them back to you unless you're going to pay a fine. So you could pick up your signs and get a ticket at the same time. They're at the planning and building department building. And we're happy to provide you with both your signs back and that ticket at that time. Unfortunately, we are going to be mailing some tickets this week because of the enormity of it. Every single weekend, hundreds of signs go out, and it's a huge burden on the staff and on the taxpayers of the city. There's my soapbox for the day. Finally, some good news coming, and Councilman Bellamy mentioned it a minute ago, is we do have a draft of the downtown and Riverfront master plan that we're reviewing internally and with our stakeholders who participated in the planning effort. We hope to have our consultants come to you at a future meeting and present that plan to you, the final plan. It is really good, and I think you're going to be very pleased by it. And it gives us some great benchmarks to strive for in the next 5 and 10 years on it. And I'm really excited to get working on it. And then finally, I guess the finally appendix, because I said finally a moment ago, we do have one department head report tonight from Reggie Jenrette in our solid waste department, unless there are any questions for me.
Question.
Yes.
The 378 16th Avenue traffic, I guess this week, alignment.
It's an intersection project. We'll signalize the intersection of 16th and 378. And the plan, as I understand it, is to realign Rue and Brown Street to match up with 16th. So you can have one roadway intersection instead of, right now it's 1, 2, 3, 4 roadways combining. It's very unsafe the way it is. And when we originally requested it, it was to benefit Whittemore Middle School specifically.
Mm-hmm.
By the time we get the intersection project done, Whittemore Middle School may no longer be there, but it still will benefit the community and create a better traffic pattern.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Jenrette. How do you do?
Good. Mayor, Council, Solid Waste Monthly Report. Solid Waste Department has one open position, which is a heavy equipment operator. Residential tonnage for the month of April, we picked up 542 tons of solid waste. Recycling tonnage, co-mingles, we picked up 125 tons. For cardboard, we picked up 88 tons of cardboard. For commercial tonnage, we picked up 776 tons of commercial. That's the restaurants and downtown businesses and other businesses. We have a total of 17 dumpsters rented out. We just started renting out dumpsters past July. It's been pretty big in saving customers money. Yard waste, we picked up 159 tons of yard waste. The total landfill bill is $70,000, $882.15 for the month of April. The total amount of diesel fuel that we use was 5,969 gallons of diesel fuel for the month of April. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to
Do you know what
answer.
that costs?
Yes, ma'am. That was $28,000 worth of diesel fuel.
I'll be glad when prices go down, if they ever do. So I was just gonna say that the enormity of the work you do is beyond what I expected to hear. And when you say ton, it's not, when people say, I got a ton of friends and I got a ton of this and that, we're talking about 2,000 or whatever it is you're talking about. So yeah, that's, wow. Thank you for all you do.
Okay.
Mr. Hyman?
I just wanted to, a little birdie told me that you got a plaque.
Yes, sir.
South Carolina Department of Natural Resources gave Reggie and Public Works a plaque for all the work they did on cleaning up the derelict boats. And that's something to be proud of. Good job. And I specifically talked to Joel and he told me just again, he said, could not have asked for more help than you guys gave him. So that's great. Hopefully we can maybe do the same with Mr. Bellamy and the county snatch and drag. That'd be great. But again, thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jenrette. And now for our council input. We did start with Ms. Butler. Sorry to call you Hickman. Ms. Butler last time, so we were going to start with Ms. Helms this time.
I went to Horry Georgetown Technical College's graduation, and they graduated, or 574 people walked, which was amazing. Dr. Ford talked about, there was a 16-year-old that graduated and a 74-year-old that graduated, and they both cried all the way across the stage, which was awesome.
Wow.
A lady from Ukraine graduated, which I thought was pretty cool. They recognized her, and it was an honor to be there, and it was really, I mean, to see that many people graduate at our technical college is impressive. But and also I went to the concert Saturday night, and that's just a fun event. I almost wish that we did that kind of like North Myrtle Beach during the summer. And so there were a lot of people there coming and going, and it was good fellowship, and everybody seemed to be having a great time. So I did enjoy that. And that's all I have.
Maybe we can increase some funding. We'll see. We'll see. Mr. Hyman.
I went to the Groovin' on the Green, was it Saturday or Friday? Friday. It was a great turnout. A lot of people there. There had to have been, I don't know, 2,000, 2,500 people. There was a lot, and a lot of kids looking at the cars, and it was just a great turnout and a lot of fun. I'm excited. You know, we were talking about Sarah Rich came and talked about the trails and the bike path, and I really can see that adding a lot. It's certainly a hurdle. One of our greatest attributes and assets is the river. But getting over that's kind of a hurdle with the bike trail, but hopefully we can get creative and trying to figure something out with that, because I think that would be wonderful to be able to join the rails to trails from Myrtle Beach, Diener to Loris. I mean, there's just kind of endless possibilities with that. I think that's all. I did see Greg and Willie painting today, and I don't know how they got anything done, because I was stopped at the stop sign, and I had to go by Harbor Freight, and so I was at the stop sign, and every 5 seconds somebody was honking and they were having to wave. I mean, and they stopped every time I turned around and waved. But it was good to see them out there. It's certainly great to see our staff and our employees that are so friendly to the community. That's great.
Thank you so much, Mr. White.
I'm glad to hear that we have some research going on with Smith Jones Pool. And I am not one to ask crazy questions. I do, but it's not just for me. A lot of folks don't know some of the questions or how to ask some questions, or even to come to council to ask these things. So lots of time I'm asking questions based on what I've been asked. So I just want y'all to know, I do know a little something about what we do, but at the same time, I just want to make sure that the citizens of Conway have access to that knowledge as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. White. Mr. Jordan.
I am good tonight, Mayor.
All right, and Ms. Butler.
Thank you. I kind of want to reiterate what Councilman Helm said about graduation. We have had Coastal's graduation or Georgetown Tech's graduation. We have been privileged to have a lot of young, wonderful, educated young people walk across the stage to get degrees and to enter into a new field of work. And I just want to remind everyone that we have to kind of keep them in our minds when it comes to making opportunities available for them to actually stay. I spoke to some graduates from Coastal, and unfortunately they won't be staying. They will go back to their hometown. And we definitely want to make sure that we are having opportunities to keep these young minds here in Conway. I also wanted to say that we do have our seniors from Conway High School who are preparing and getting ready to graduate as well. They are studying hard. They did their senior walks today at all of the local elementary schools. So it was great to see them in their cap and gowns today. And it was great to see the excitement of those elementary school students when they saw our seniors. So that's all I have.
Thank you so much. I want to re-congratulate Regis Generette for his recent award, and Dale Long for his recent graduation. It takes a lot of work, and especially if you're commuting that distance. I'm really proud of both of you. Just last meeting, I mentioned or I asked staff to look a little deeper into opportunities for internships with the city. And Ms. Butler, sort of tying to your concern, part of that was real selfish for the city, that we might be able to retain some of the talent that is ours already or is being built here. I was in a conference this weekend, and that is the reason, Timmy Williams, is he here? Well, I didn't pick up trash. I was away at a conference, but while I was in that conference, promise, I learned that the Municipal Association has a pilot project that is beginning this year. They're looking at MPA students, Masters of Public Administration students, and the whole idea is try to grow from that group of potential professionals some opportunities to learn with us, but then also to have first dibs at them once they pan out. Get to structure what they learn, just to see what work ethic they have and all those things. The thing that makes that is hopefully new is that for this year, there aren't many opportunities, but they're going to cost share 5 such students, and whatever costs that it might be associated with having interns, if we can have one of those slots and offset the cost to the city, that would be wonderful. I also took note that the South Carolina Tort Claims Act may very well change. There's there for a very long time, the city couldn't be sued, state couldn't be sued, county couldn't be sued. Well, that changed in about 1986. And the South Carolina Tort Claims Act has, as of this point, limited the liability of governmental groups to $300,000 for a single occurrence for one person, and a total of $600,000 regardless of the number of claims, agencies involved, divisions of government that might be involved. There's a proposal that sits in the Senate that would increase those limits to, at one point, they were looking at $1 and $2 million. Now it looks more like $500,000 and $1 million. And if it's passed, our premiums are probably going to go up upwards of 9%, which is substantial. We can't do much about that, but we certainly, this is just a reminder that our own losses are what we need to guard against. So to the extent that we can just sort of reclaim this attention to detail, following OSHA rules, following City of Conway rules, looking before you step. What they say, measure twice and cut once. No, measure 3 times before you cut, or before you step, or before you move, because we certainly don't want to lose out in that regard. I've had a few conversations with a gentleman out of San Antonio, actually, who is working with a professor at Coastal about developing some greenhouses to grow produce, to get the community involved, to feed the community. And there's a lot yet to be developed in terms of an actual proposal, but I expect that we'll have one soon. The proposal for the city just has to do with using some of our FEMA lots, or 1 or 2 of our lots, see how it works on a small scale, and very possibly build from that. I believe that is all I have. That is all I have. So we will now go into executive session. Madam Clerk, you are so good with your timing. You said 5:25 and we're like 5:31, I believe. We're 5:26. Oh, my goodness, within a minute. That's pretty good. The purpose for this executive session is consideration of appointments to boards, commissions, and committees pursuant to South Carolina Code Section 3470A1, and B, acquisition of property for consideration of conservation near Crabtree Swamp and or Kingston Swamp pursuant to South Carolina Code Section 3470A2. After which time, if any decisions are to be made, we'll reconvene if any action is taken on those matters. If anybody would like to wait to see the outcome, you're certainly welcome to do so. But I will entertain a motion to go into executive session. Ms. Helms. You moved that we do that? Okay, right. Okay, I'm sorry. Well, we can, all right, well, I'll make the motion, Ms. Helms has seconded, that we go into executive session. All in favor with show of hands, please. Motion carries unanimously. And if any